From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Zahra Syed. Our top story tonight. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza said today that in the past 24 hours, Israeli forces committed 10 massacres across the territory, killing 112 people and injuring 15. The Palestinian death toll from Israel's war on Palestine has reached 28,775, with 68,552 injured. Israeli forces' incursion into Khan Yunis's Nasser hospital has resulted in the deaths of 4 patients due to severed electricity and oxygen supplies. The health ministry also reports that 2 women gave birth in inhumane conditions without electricity, water, food, and heating. Patients and staff are facing dire conditions as the escalating violence has led to thousands seeking refuge in hospitals, further straining Gaza's already fragile healthcare system. Dr. Nahid Abu Taima has described the situation inside the hospital as catastrophic. The Israeli army claims to have arrested over 20 Hamas fighters within the hospital premises. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to oppose unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society has released an audio recording of 6-year-old Hind Rajab's final moments, who was trapped in her car after it came under Israeli fire. She was found dead nearly 2 weeks after she called for help. Israeli forces targeted a car on January 29th that was traveling in search of shelter in Gaza City. In the audio, a Red Crescent volunteer named Rana is heard reciting the Quran with Rajab to calm her fear. The child was traveling in a car with her family, including her 15-year-old cousin Layan Hamadeh, fleeing the fighting in northern Gaza. According to the humanitarian group, Hamadeh was killed while speaking to the Red Crescent team by telephone, as gunfire could be heard in the background. When the team called back, it was Rajab who answered, possibly the only survivor in that car. Soon after, they lost all contact with that child. The girl waited, remaining on the telephone with Red Crescent teams for 3 hours amid the bodies of her relatives in the car. An ambulance team found Hind's body last Saturday. Despite the horror of the crime, Israel is yet to be held accountable for the child's killing. The U.S. says it is awaiting an investigation from Tel Aviv.
نحكي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. صدق الله العظيم.
The U.S., in collaboration with Arab nations, is actively working on a comprehensive plan to establish a Palestinian state aiming for lasting peace between Israel and Palestine. The Washington Post reports that the plan is nearing finalization, with efforts to define a specific timeline possibly announced within weeks. The initiative intertwines with ongoing ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas. Its initial 6-week ceasefire period is expected to pave the way for support and preliminary steps. U.S. officials have hinted at recognizing Palestine, signaling a potential shift in peace efforts. President Biden cautioned Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu once again against invading the city of Rafah, where half of Gaza's remaining population has fled to, emphasizing civilian safety. Netanyahu has rejected unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state, defying reported peace deal arrangements. Meanwhile, Ireland has pledged over $21 million to the UN Refugee Agency, the UNRWA, which is under scrutiny due to Israeli allegations that its staff had helped Hamas in its October 7th operation against Israel. The UNRWA, which provides healthcare, education, and other services, has been thrown into crisis due to fund denial by Western nations. Spain last week pledged to send the UNRWA more than $3 million in aid, and an announcement of an extra $1 million from Portugal. Protesters advocating for a ceasefire in Gaza, as well as migrant rights, staged a die-in at the U.S. Congressional Building, leading to their arrests. Around 100 demonstrators marched from Union Station to the Capitol. At the Cannon House office building, a smaller group staged a die-in protest, resulting in their arrest. The demonstration aimed to highlight the plight of Palestinians amid the Israeli war in Gaza, which has killed over 28,000 Palestinians and destroyed critical infrastructure. The UN reports widespread displacement and shortages of essentials in Gaza. Israel has faced accusations of genocide at the International Court of Justice. The court issued an interim ruling last month, urging measures to ensure humanitarian aid to Gaza's civilians. Former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo danced with Israeli soldiers during a visit to Israel. The visit comes amid criticism of Israel's war on Gaza, which has killed over 28,000 Palestinians. Pompeo, who served under former President Donald Trump, has been a vocal supporter of Israel. He says he stands with Israel and the Jewish people. Pompeo's visit was met with mixed reactions. Many criticized him for ignoring the plight of Palestinians. He was received by Israeli soldiers in the southern city of Ofakim, according to Israel National News. In May 2018, under Trump and Pompeo, the U.S. moved its embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. A pro-Palestine mural painted outside the San Francisco Federal Building. Details come after the break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Hundreds of demonstrators gathered outside the federal building in San Francisco to protest ongoing Israeli attacks on Gaza and the city of Rafah. Footage of the protest shows a large pro-Palestine mural on the floor. Carrying banners and chanting slogans, the protesters marched on the market street and urged President Joe Biden to stop arming Israel. Ceasefire now, free Palestine, and Israel is a terrorist state were amongst the slogans they chanted. American actor Selma Blair has apologized for making an Islamophobic comment on social media. Blair said she mistakenly and inadvertently conflated Muslims with radical Islamists and fundamentalists, and that her words caused unintended harm to countless individuals. Blair's comments came in response to a social media post by Abraham Hamra, an advocate for immigration reform. Hamra had criticized two congresspersons for voting against a measure aimed at preventing individuals involved in a cross-border incursion by Hamas from immigrating to the United States. Blair apologized to the Muslim community and her friends for her offensive words. She said she removed the comment after realizing her mistake and emphasized the importance of combating hatred and misinformation. Blair has faced backlash on social media for her comments. Some have called for her to be boycotted, while others have defended her right to free speech. Blair has starred in films such as Legally Blonde and Hellboy. She is also known for her being outspoken on social and political issues. Former President Donald Trump has once again stirred controversy by reiterating that he will not defend NATO members who fail to meet defense spending targets if elected in November. Trump recounted a conversation with a NATO member, but deliberately omitted a contentious line that allegedly encouraged Russia to target allies who fail to fulfill their obligations to the alliance. Prominent American figures, such as 2024 presidential candidate Nikki Haley, Trump's former UN ambassador, and President Joe Biden, swiftly denounced Trump's remarks as dangerous and un-American. Trump's comments drew attention to his relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Meanwhile, Biden advocated for a foreign aid package to support Ukraine, which Trump opposed, suggesting replacing it with a loan. During his time in office, Trump had a tense relationship with NATO allies. Bangladesh has repatriated 330 Burmese nationals who had sought refuge in the country amid border clashes between rebel factions and Burma's military. They include 302 border guard police personnel, 4 of their family members, 2 army personnel, 18 immigration officials, and 4 civilians. Unlike the broader Rohingya crisis stemming from a 2017 military genocide, the current situation involves the return of Burmese nationals involved in recent border conflicts. Amid ongoing clashes between rebel factions and Burma's military in Rakhine State, Bangladesh Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan confirmed that Burma had agreed to repatriate the security force members who had crossed the border. The border region continues to experience heavy fighting, with reports of gunfire, shelling, and concerns over escalating casualties. The United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, or the UNIFIL, is calling attacks against civilians war crimes. UNIFIL spokesperson Andrea Tenenti has urged all parties to end hostilities immediately to avoid further escalation. He has called for intensifying diplomatic efforts to restore stability and safeguard the safety of civilians residing near the Blue Line. The Blue Line is the line set by the United Nations for the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanon in 2000. Early Thursday, the Lebanese government said it will file a complaint against Israel at the UN Security Council over an Israeli drone strike that killed 7 people. Tensions has flared along the border between Lebanon and Israel amid intermittent exchanges of fire between Israeli forces and Hezbollah. Lawmakers in Somalia's breakaway region, Somaliland, have rejected a maritime access deal with Ethiopia. In a joint statement, members of both houses of Somaliland's parliament said the Red Sea access deal was illegal and aimed to harm the unity of the people of Somaliland. The statement pointed to conflicting statements from leaders of Somaliland and Ethiopia on the deal. It allows Ethiopia to obtain a permanent naval base and commercial maritime service in the Gulf of Aden. Somalia has rejected Ethiopia's Red Sea port deal with Somaliland, calling it illegitimate, a threat to good neighborliness, and a violation of its sovereignty. Ties between the two neighboring nations has been worsening since Ethiopia struck a deal with Somaliland in January. The Ethiopian government has defended its decision, saying the agreement with Somaliland will affect no party or country. Ethiopia lost its Red Sea ports in the early 1990s after the Eritrean War of Independence, which lasted from 1961 to 1991. In 1991, Eritrea gained independence from Ethiopia, leading to the establishment of 2 separate nations. The separation resulted in Ethiopia losing direct access to the Red Sea and key ports. Environmental groups have sued the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, for allegedly hiding test data on dangerous chemicals found in millions of plastic containers. The lawsuit claims the EPA classified health and safety information as trade secrets, violating disclosure rules. The per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or the PFAs, are commonly known as forever chemicals and do not biodegrade. They also accumulate in the human body. PFAs are linked to various health issues and are found in almost everyone's blood. Plaintiffs say the EPA withheld data on PFAs levels in containers and the products they hold, leaving the public unaware of the potential risks. The groups urge transparency to protect public health. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.